Recording in progress. All right. So it's so good to see everyone. I am really happy to be here. So let's start with some joint mobilization exercises. I'm feeling a little creaky. So let's start with silk reeling. So clasp your fingers together. And then we'll just start using this sort of spiral action to start opening up the wrist, the fingers. So your hands are clasped and you're just sort of winding your wrists around one another. So it's this action, right? But with the fingers clasped. So it's helping to open up the joints. Good morning, everyone. We're just doing some silk reeling, opening up the fingers, the hands, and then a little bit of action into the elbows. So the elbows are coming forward nice and slow. We're just, again, keeping those wrists nice and loose. And then we'll start to get some mobility up into the shoulders. So as the left shoulder comes up, so you're still upright. So your head's not really, you're not really leaning, but you're bringing your elbow up, right? And then forward, and then the right elbow up and then forward. So you're getting a nice, good rotation through the whole shoulder. And then as that elbow comes forward, think about that hip coming forward as well. So you're moving really like your elbow and your hip are joined. So as the elbow comes up and forward, the hip comes forward. And then as the elbow comes back, the hip comes back and the opposite side comes forward. This is just helping to start moving all of those big joints and all of the ways that they can move. Like we're oiling the hinges of a door. If we aren't moving them, then they get a little creaky and stiff. So this is a really great way to help increase the fluids that lubricate the joints. And now let's go in the opposite direction. So this time bring your elbow up and then pull it back and down. Up, back and down, and the hip comes back and then down. Really gentle. So it's just a nice movement, kind of make it fluid. And then just pay attention, right? As the hip comes back, the elbow comes back. And then let's keep the hands clasped right in front of you, but turn so your palms are facing out and extend the arms forward, rounding the upper back just a little bit. So you get a nice stretch to the shoulder blades. And then turn your palms facing you and then inhale, draw your hands in towards your chest. So this is actually a breathing exercise. So we exhale, round forward and press away. And then nice and slowly we inhale, drawing in. And now let's keep the hands clasped. Now to stretch up towards the ceiling. Press down through your feet, press your hands up towards the ceiling. So you're moving almost in two different directions. You're moving up, but you're also anchoring down. Take a nice inhale. And then on the exhale, keep your hands clasped, but bring them underneath your chin. And then keep exhaling as you bring your elbows close together. And at the very end of your exhale, see if you can squeeze out one last drop. And then inhale as we bring the hands back up towards the ceiling. Right? Letting a full expression of the exhale, right? We want to take in as much air as we can on the next inhale, but we can't really do that if we don't fully exhale. using the elbows drawing towards one another as a way of kind of contracting the lungs even more. Like you're squeezing that last drop out and then allowing a full deep inhale. And one more big inhale, exhale, and then let your arms drop down. Now let's go into some of our spinal cord opening exercises. So moving from the hips and the waist, arms are nice and loose and loosey-goosey, turning from the waist, knocking across the abdomen and the back. So here you should feel, right? The movement really is coming from the center. So if I wasn't actively moving my arms at all, right? Look what happens. They just, by virtue of creating this momentum from moving the hips and the waist, the arms naturally swing. I'm not moving my arms at all. And then you can add just a little action of the arms so that you're directing the contact of the body, right? The lower abdomen and the lower back. And then let's come up just below the collarbone, activating those lungs. The lymph system, helping to facilitate movement of all of that debris that's trying to, like garbage collectors throughout the body, right? But we need that to circulate and move through. And then come to the very top of the shoulders. And then back down below the collarbone. And then back down to the waist. And then let's release the arms and start to slowly unwind. All right, now let's get into some flexion and extension. So we'll do spinal cord breathing, but we'll add in a little twist. But let's start facing forward. Inhale, bring your hands up by your head, your face, look up, and then exhale. This is not really a bend at the waist. As we exhale, it's really a curling of the spine forward, right? The movement comes really from moving the spine as we inhale, arching a little back, and then as we exhale forward, tailbone tucks down slightly, and then the head tucks in slightly, the chin tucks down slightly on the exhale. So we're inhale, so we're focusing the movement on the vertebrae itself rather than the hip joint. Right? So if we're moving like this, we're not really moving the spine too much. But if we keep the hips rather stable, we inhale, when we go to exhale, we're really getting a stretch through each of those vertebrae. And then inhale. And exhale. Now let's add in a slight rotation. So as we inhale and unfurl, you're going to turn slightly to the left and look up, and then come back to the center on the exhale, tucking the chin down. Now inhale over to the right, and then exhale back to the center. So just giving a little slight rotation. So we're incorporating flexion, an extension of the spine, and a little rotation. So just a little extra energy. And then again, moving on the breath. So we inhale as we open up, and then a nice slow exhale as we come to the center. So one exhale as we extend, and inhale as we extend, and then exhale as we contract in. And then on the next exhalation, let's come to the center, drop the arms down. So we're going to go into a little Dao Yin. That's a stretching of the meridian lines. So for anyone that has vertigo or dizziness, you don't have to bring your head all the way down, right? If you need to keep your head above your heart, that's totally fine. You can still do a version of the movements, just keep your head up. So let's start with the feet close together. Let's clasp the hands except for your index fingers, which are pointing upwards. And then extend the arms up, pointing the fingers towards the sky. Get a nice stretch. Maybe, right? A very gentle back bend here. Just opening up the sides of the ribs. Now on the exhale, you're going to take your hands behind your head, the base of your skull, and then bend the knees as we come down. And then if it feels good, you can bring your elbows all the way down so you're curling into a ball. And then inhale, straighten the legs and stretch back up. And again, exhale, hands behind the head, bending the knees, coming all the way down on the exhale. So again, we're moving on the breath. Inhale, extend. If you're only bringing keeping your head upright, you can still bend the knees, right? Crouching down, almost like you're in a chair position, and then extend. Exhale down. And inhale. A little pumping action as we bend the knees and then straighten. Bending the knees and then straightening. Bending the knees. Straighten. This time, let your arms float down. So again, if you need to keep your head above your heart, just come down halfway. Otherwise, let's float the arms all the way towards the earth. So your head's either up, you're in sort of a half bend, or you're bending all the way forward with bent knees. Take a few rounds of breath here. And then clasp your hands, making a little basket again. And then slowly start to unwind, rolling all the way up. Keep your hands clasped. Raise your hands above your head so the palms are facing the sky. And then let's come up to the balls of our feet. So this is a point on the first point on the kidney channel, raising the bubbling spring. So we're stretching up. This is really great for balance, strengthening the ankles, the feet. And then gently let your heels come down towards the earth. Keep your arms extended up towards the ceiling. We're going to gently lean over to the left. So keep those feet firmly planted, stretching over to the left so you feel a nice deep stretch to the right of the rib cage. And breathe. So inhale and then exhale. And then inhale to the center. Now exhale over to the right. Like we forget, the lungs are passive. The lungs are a muscle, but they're a tissue, excuse me. But the way they expand, let's come inhale up to the center, exhale now your arms down, out to the sides, press the palms away. So we'll go into spreading the feathers and then let your head tilt over to the left very gently. So you get a nice stretch, the side of the neck. The lungs expand because we have these muscles between each of the ribs. They're called the intercostal muscles, right? They flex and extend. But the diaphragm is this umbrella of a muscle right at the mid section of the body. And as we have nerves that innervate it. And as we inhale, the diaphragm extends down and that allows, and the air is drawn into the lungs and the lungs expand. And then as we exhale, the diaphragm, bring your head upright and now over to the right. But as the diaphragm, on the exhale, the diaphragm ascends back up and the lungs contract in. So it's so wonderful, right? How our bodies are so intelligent at working. But so the better that we can focus on improving our breath, elongating the breath, stretching the muscles between the ribs, and working it to strengthen the diaphragm, our lungs are going to be more efficient. Bring your head upright and then drop your arms down. So that's why it's really important we do breath work. We also need to focus on, stretching these areas that have to expand in order for the lungs to expand. So on that note, let's go to a wider stance. Keep your hands on your thighs. And let's go into moving the body like a river. Again, we're moving the spine laterally. So we shift, there's a little bit of a weight shift. And then the body sort of rolls over and the head arrives last. So again, we're actually moving and stretching the sides of the body, or the lateral movement of the spine. And then we're incorporating the breath. So inhale in one direction, exhale in the other, allowing the arms and shoulders to be relaxed. So maybe do a little scan, see if you're holding tension unnecessarily, and allow the breath to help relax those areas. You want to stay upright. That feels like your MO today. Great. You want to try bringing your torso a little closer to the ground, a little more parallel. Might be a little more challenging if that's sort of what you're feeling today. So the stronger, the better we can help that diaphragm be able to work. And doing breath work actually helps to strengthen the diaphragm. And then moving our torso so that we're stretching the intercostal muscles, right? It's going to help the functioning of our lungs, keeping them pliable. And now let's come to the center, palms right at the center of the chest. And then let's inhale and look up. And exhale back to the center. And then inhale. And exhale. And again, inhale. And exhale. Last one. All right, let's come back to a closer stance, more narrow stance. And let's just shake everything out before we go into the floats. And let's start to slow down. Okay. So our first flow today, moon over the lake. Then we'll go into a flow called Tigress Gathers Her Cubs. And then kind of we'll focus also on connecting to this area below, gravity, earth energy, and this universe above, and bringing energy into our center to help cultivate, right, our internal sense of well-being. Let's start with the palms facing the earth. And then there is a slight weight shift here. So shifting the weight from the right foot to the left, allowing the hands to graze across. Imagine that there's a body of water below us, and our hands are just tracing the surface of this water. Right? Nice and fluid and relaxed. Like the water being a representation of our internal energy. Moving nice and slowly on the breath. So here I like to inhale in one direction and then exhale in the opposite. Placing the awareness on your fingertips. Just imagine what that would feel like if your fingertips were just gently brushing across the surface of water. Now, as we come over to the right, let's pause here. Let's inhale as the arms float up towards the sky, then come to the center. And now as we rotate over to the left, the hands then descend. Okay, so we trace, gently glide over to the right on the inhale, rise up, and then over now to the left as we exhale and the arms and hands float back down. Okay, so tracing the surface of water, imagine water evaporates, right? You have these clouds above. They start to condense into rain, which falls back to this body of water. So this transformation, right, of this dense format of H2O, right? It starts to become a little more light and ethereal up into the clouds and then condenses back down. It's all still H2O, right? It's just shifting into different variations. So this is also sort of a representation of the three treasures in Chinese medicine, which are Jing, Qi, and Shen. Jing being our most dense, the physical bodies that we have, right? Qi the more heart center, emotional aspect of who we are. And then Shen is our consciousness, all of which are different manifestations of who we are. And they are constantly feeding one another and informing one another and transforming. Think about how our emotions impact our physiology and how our minds impact our emotions and how our physical body impacts our emotions. So kind of integrating them all, right? So that we're cultivating that which kind of feeds that positive, what we want to feel, and focused attention on that. Now let's pause here and let's just go back and forth again before we change directions. And now the next time we glide over to the left, we'll inhale all the way up to the center and then exhale down the right. And then inhale and exhale. Keeping those wrists and hands nice and light. Right? We're just moving like we're gliding through water. Lightness and relaxation. Inhaling. Right, condensing back down. One more. Inhale, exhaling over to the right. And now let's just come back to the center for a moment, holding our chi balls. And we're integrating, our consciousness, our emotional center, our physical bodies. They're constantly informing one another. So we can create these internal harmonies by working on the body, but working on our emotional center and our consciousness and kind of staying present. Let's bring the feet a little closer together again. So now we'll go into Tigress Gathers her cubs. So gathering her cubs, the cubs in this respect is sort of what it is that we want to, these treasures, right? These internal treasures that we have and what we want to bring in that helps to nourish them energetically, emotionally. So we'll start with your left hand. We're going to turn slightly to the right. And as we do, that back of that left hand is going to come across the body and then rotate, spiral the hand up and then pull it back into the center. Let me repeat that. We'll do that same side. So we turn from the hips and the waist and the arm floats across. Now the action comes again from pulling the hips back to center. And as we do, the hand will spiral up and then come back in. So while there is a movement of the arm, it again is coming from moving the center of your body. So now we're going to gently rotate over to the left as the right arm floats across, and then pull your hip back to the center and the arm pulls back in. So it's an exhale, float across, and then inhale back to the center. So think about floating, sort of gathering in these resources, right, back into our energetic bank account, this lower dantian, this elixir field in the lower abdomen. We're working on just drawing in, gathering and nourishing, and cultivating our internal reserves, creating emotional harmony. And that doesn't mean that we don't have all the emotions, right? In Chinese medicine, worry, anger, fear, grief, sadness, right? They're part of the human existence, the condition, but it's when those that are not expressed, they get sort of stuck internally, then it causes energetic chi stagnation, and that's where it can cause problems. So cultivating, right, a way of full expression, allowing things to move through so that things don't get stuck. So think about what it is that you want to cultivate. Maybe it's internal peace, maybe it's resiliency or joy, and we're just using these techniques to help physicalize it, if that's even a word, right? But feeling how energy is moving through our emotional center and even our consciousness. So now we're going to continue that same movement, but this time we're going to reach across more at the level of the heart. So this arm's floating across a little further up and then back in. Think about that same concept, but now nourishing your heart center. So we exhale and then draw in and then let go. Constantly gathering, integrating, and then letting go. Even the breath is an exercise of that, right? We fully inhale, we draw in, chi disseminates throughout the body. Then we exhale and let go of that breath and allow space for the next one to come in. So this constant receiving, experiencing, being grateful or having gratitude, and then allowing that letting go. And now we'll continue a little further up now, right in front of the forehead, the third eye, right? Our consciousness, right? Getting rid of the cycles of rumination, right? Having the thoughts, but then not necessarily attaching ourselves to them, right? Creating that space between thoughts and deciding, having that agency in whether that is a thought, just like a separate object, right? If that's a thought that you want to engage with, is it going to serve you Or is that a thought that's one to be let go of? Right? And that's how we become masters of our consciousness, of our emotional center, of our physical body, is getting in touch with that ever present awareness that's beyond our thoughts. Think of as we were babies, right? A little pure of consciousness. We accumulate through life experiences, through conditioning, through being taught, know how to think. It's not necessarily bad, but when we start identifying as thoughts as who we are, that's where we can get a little sticky. So just thinking about thoughts just like a heartbeat or a breath coming in and out, right? It's part of us, but it is not who we are. Just like we are not exclusively our heartbeat, we are not exclusively this breath coming in and out. This thought is just coming in. Is it something that is going to be serving me, or is it something to be let go of? And then let's come back down in front of the heart, gathering, integrating, and then down back to the waist. And let's bring everything back into our chi ball for a moment. And then we have a few minutes left to do my last flow, which is not really a flow, it's more a posture. But let's have the right hand facing the earth, and then the left hand facing the ceiling, the sky. Just feeling the sensations, right? The denseness below in the palm of your right hand. And maybe it's also a little dense in your upper hand, but it might feel a little different. The qualities of the atmosphere, the universe above, and the gravitational pull of the earth, and how both of those are important. And we stand right between both of them, and how we can integrate. So a healthy balance of yin and yang, rest and work, night and dark, up and down, in and out. And then let's turn the palms facing one another. On the next exhale, just let your top hand float down so the hands are on top of one another. And then let's rotate that 3 times. So the right hand comes on top, and the left. Now the right hand should be on top. Just inhale, float that hand up, and then turn so you're facing the ceiling and the bottom hand's facing the earth. Nice inhale. And then turn the palms, they're facing one another. And then on the next exhale, float that top hand down again. And let's turn that chi ball 3 times again. 1. They're mixing. We're just like an alchemist, or just like a chef. Inhale, we're stretching the polarities of yin and yang. That's where this field of chi is around us, but we're connecting to sort of this denser form of chi below, and this lightness above. And then we're bringing that top hand down, just like an alchemist. We're mixing those two energies together. And then inhale, connect. And then exhale. We'll do that one more time to each side. Mixing, separating, but there's that connection. Even though it's separating, there's a piece of taffy that's connecting the two. We're filling up, we're plugging in, just like an appliance. If we think of our internal organs like appliances, they might be fully functioning, but if they don't have electricity, they're sort of useless. They're not going to be they're not going to be fully operational. So just think about this as plugging in, bringing that top hand down, we're integrating, right? And now our internal systems are charged up. Inhale one last time. And then exhale. Now let's bring the hands side by side one last time. And then drop the arms down, and let's inhale the arms all the way up. And then very gently, just let your hands float back down. And then inhale and exhale. And one last time. Nice big inhale. And then exhale, bring your feet together. One hand on the lower abdomen, other hand on top. And let's pause, thinking about the word integration. We've just gathered all these ingredients. First, we washed the pots. We dumped out all the stuff that's been growing mold in the refrigerator. We washed all the pots out, created that space, took in all these ingredients, mixed them all up, and now we get to store all of that goodness. And when you're ready, you can crack your eyes open. Thank you, everyone. Hope you feel good and charged up and ready to conquer whatever it is that you want to or engage in, maybe not conquer.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Bye. You too.
Blaze says goodbye.